Welcome to the Dungeon Talk, a Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition podcast providing tutorials, inspiration, info, and interviews about aspects of Dungeons & Dragons. I'm your host, Nathaniel, and you're listening to the Dungeon Talk, Episode 4, The Druid. Dungeon Talk! Dungeon Talk! Dungeon Talk! Do-do-do-do! Holding high a gnarled staff wreathed with holly, an elf summons the fury of the storm and calls down explosive bolts of lightning to smite the torch-carrying orcs who threaten her forest. Crouching out of sight on a high tree branch in the form of a leopard, a human peers out of the jungle at the strange construction of a temple of evil elemental air. Keeping a close eye on the cultist's activities, swinging a blade formed of pure fire, a half-elf charges into a mass of skeletal soldiers, sundering the unnatural magic that gives the foul creatures the mocking semblance of life. Whether calling on the elemental forces of nature or emulating the creatures of the animal world, druids are an embodiment of nature's resilience, cunning, and fury. They claim no mastery over nature. Instead, they see themselves as extensions of nature's indomitable will. So, the Druid. Fun class. Druids are interesting as they have the innate ability to go ahead and transform into animals. Now, having the ability to transform the animals means they are pretty overpowered. I mean, they're not totally overpowered. Like, there are some classes that are way overpowered compared to these guys, but they've got some pretty powerful things they can do. The first section of the Druid explains the power of nature. And druids revere nature above all, getting their spells and magic and stuff from it. Or maybe a nature deity. So it then talks about how they pursue mystic spirituality or a transcendent union with nature. So it talks about the union with nature. And then it also talks about how, well, others will serve like God. They'll serve like gods of nature, or they'll serve animals, or just the elements. This is called the old faith within D&D's lore, and it contrasts to the newer faith systems with gods in temples and shrines. Druid spells are basically the next part of Power Nature is talks about their druid spells being oriented with nature and animals and tooth and claw, sun and moon, fire and storm. Druids also gain the ability to take on animal forms, which is their main ability, Wild Shape. They have the ability, they have the section called Preserve the Balance, which is for druids, nature exists in a precarious balance, the four elements that make up a world, earth, air, fire, and water. Only the Avatar can bring back and master all four I'm just kidding. And they must remain in equilibrium. If one element were to gain power over the others, the world would be destroyed. And that's this is a big thing with druids, where they don't like elemental evil, as it's like the exact opposite of everything they stand for. So I guess it makes sense. Thus, they oppose cults of elemental evil. And then this goes into the thing. There's a bunch of supplements, and then a bunch of D&D adventures, all focusing around elemental evil. I might do an episode on that in the future, but it's just a big mess that I don't want to get into. It also said that they're concerned with delicate ecological balance, so that also means just general nature stuff. Like, they don't want something to be overhunted or overfished or whatever, or overforested, because then it will throw things out of balance in the ecosystem. So that's also a bit of science thrown in there. They're also found guarding sacred sites or watching over regions of unspoiled nature. So like Pokemon's Pallet Town or untouched nature. It also said that they really don't like things that are not part of nature. So they really don't like aberrations such as like mind flayers or beholders or aboleths. And they also don't like undead, so zombies or ghouls or ghasts or ghosts, and they really don't like that because it's not right. Which, I mean, could be chalked up to be like, oh, they don't like stuff that they don't understand. It's not that, it's just like, they don't like it because it's wrong, and their undead should be dead, not undead. So, I guess it makes sense. Depends on what way you look at it. Creating a druid. There's creating their class section. Only has a few questions, but then comes up with a lot more example questions. Talks about stuff like it talks about stuff like consider your bond with nature and why you became a druid, and then how you became an adventurer. How you became an adventurer is usually a large part of the different creating class sections. So you got to think about a lot of these things. Druid abilities. Druids have this one ability called Druidic, which is the secret language of the druids. Seems similar to Thieves' Cant, but most for druids, obviously. They basically can leave hidden messages within nature, so like slash mark on a certain branch, or leaves arranged in a certain pattern or something. Basically, like signaling other druids about something or whatever. They can have their spellcasting because druids are spellcasters, and I'm not going to go into that. Spellcasting is a big thing. Y'all know it. Y'all love it. Spellcasting's great. Wild Shape is your second level ability, where you have the ability to. This is the main ability of the druid, where you can turn into animals. And now a lot of people are going to be like, oh my god, they can turn into animals. I really want to do that. That's super OP. It's not. It's really well power balanced, thank goodness, because I'm a DM, and if it wasn't power balanced, oh my god. But it is very alluring to many people because, hey, I can transform into animals. I'm an animal lover. I want to play a druid. So druids are great. They get the beast shape. They get to wild shape, where depending on their level, they have certain limitations on what they can transform into. When they're only second level, when they get this ability, they can't do anything that can fly or swim. At fourth level, they can't do anything that can fly. And at eighth level, there's no limitations. There's also a limitation on the max challenge rating, which is a classification for how dangerous a monster in a fight is. So, for example is if something has a challenge rating of 2, that means it's good for a party of level 2 adventurers. So it's pretty fun. And then there's a whole bunch of rules that are meant for power balancing, because it has to be power balanced. The druid subclasses are known as druid circles, where they have the circle of the land, circle of moon, in the player's handbook, and then the Xanathar's Guide to Everything has the Circle of the Shepherd and Circle of the Moon. No, Circle of Dreams. Moon is in Player's Handbook. And then I'm pretty sure that there's an Unearthed Arcana concerning the Circle of Stars. The first druid circle we're going to talk about is the Circle of the Land. The Circle of the Land is made up of mystics and sages who safeguard ancient knowledge and rites through a vast oral tradition. I don't know what that's supposed to mean. Oral tradition? Oral tradition. Okay. These druids meet within sacred circles of trees and, like, I don't know, Stonehenge. And they just, I don't know. They are basically like mystics and sages, like it says. And they get a bonus cantrip at second level where they learn another cantrip. They get natural recovery where they can heal themselves in wild shape by meditating or something. They get special circle spells depending on what sort of location they're in, or like biome. Like there's an Arctic spell list they get, there's a coast spell list, a desert, forest, grassland, mountain, swamp, underdark, blah 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 blah. Landstride is their 6th level ability, where moving through non-magical, difficult terrain costs you no extra movement. So unless somebody is casting a spell that makes you move slowly, you can walk normally. Nature's Ward is your 10th level ability, where you can't be charmed, frightened by elementals or fae, and you're immune to poison and disease. And Nature Sanctuary is your 14th level ability, where creatures of the natural world sense your connection to nature and become hesitant to attack you. So you get some special, like, anti-danger abilities. Circle of the Moon is kind of overpowered because you have the Combat Wild Shape, where at second level, you gain the ability to use Wild Shape on your turn as a bonus action rather than as an action. And while you're transformed by Wild Shape, you can use a bonus action to heal yourself with 1d8 hit points per level of the spell slot you casted. So basically, you can use one spell slot to regain health. Circle Forms is an ability where at second level you can use your wild shape to transform into beast with a challenge rating as high as 1, and you basically ignore all of the beast shape regulations for max challenge rating, and you can become more powerful. Primal Strike is your 6th level ability where attacks in your beast form count as magical. So you can now overcome resistance and immunity to non-magical attacks and damage. Elemental Wild Shape is your 10th level ability, and Thousand Forms is your 14th level ability, where you can cast Alter Self at will. So the Primal Strike is a bit of an interesting one because again, this goes to see. I've found that a lot of people think that Circle of the Moon is overpowered, and I haven't looked at it too closely. But I guess with Circle Form's ability and the Primal Strike ability, yeah, because there are tons of monsters that are immune or resistant to non-magical physical attacks, so slashing, piercing, bludgeoning. If it's non-magic or not adamantine, they're immune to it. So I guess this could be pretty overpowered. The next two subclasses are in Xanathar's Guide, and they are the Circle of Dreams and Circle of the Shepherd, each being equally interesting. So the Druid Circle of Dreams focuses on, well, dreams, because it's exactly what it says. And there's a lot of like cool mind abilities and abilities that they get specifically when they sleep, which is pretty interesting because usually they don't use that sort of thing. Xanathar's Guide also has a little thing that I'll talk about later for druids. But first, let's get through Circle of Dreams. So they hail from regions that have strong ties to the Feywild and dreamlike realms. So they sort of have a connection to a planar connection with some of the other like planes, so like astral, ethereal, Feywild, etc. So I guess that's pretty cool. They get the Balm of the Summer Court, which is an interesting name, where they have the Blessings of the Summer Court, where you're a font of energy that offers respite from energy. So you have a pool of energy that represented by a number of d6s equal to your druid level, and it helps you. You can choose one creature you can see as a bonus action, spend a number of the dice you have to half your druid level or less, and roll them, add them together, and then heal people. So it's basically super power balanced by they're like determining it, they're like trying to round it down very specifically and carefully to get to this exact number that is super perfect for that power balanced level. So that's cool. It's a long rest ability, so you regain it when you take a long rest. Hearth of Moonlight and Shadow is your 6th level ability, where home can be wherever you are. So during a short or long rest, you can invoke shadowy power of the Gloaming Court. So I think this Circle of Dreams has a lot of connections to more than just the Feywild. I think it also has stuff with the Shadowfell too. So basically, you can use stealth, and you can basically your allies and you and your allies gain a +5 bonus to your stealth and perception checks. And any light from open flames in a certain sphere, like campfire or whatever, isn't visible. So you can basically just hide everything. So that combine that with a wizard with Leomund's tiny hut, you're basically super stealth. You can hide in an enemy castle crawling with enemies without being noticed. Hidden paths. At 10th level, you can use hidden magical pathways that only Fae can use to traverse space in the blink of an eye. So you basically can find magic fairy portals in random spots. So you can use, as a bonus action, you can teleport up to 60 feet on an unoccupied space you can see. And then there's an alternative where you can use your action to do so, to do it with with a willing creature to up to 30 feet. Walker in Dreams. This is where it gets really astral and sort of like Doctor Strange astral form. Where when you finish a short rest, you can cast one of the following spells, and there's you can cast Dream with you as the messenger, Scrying, or Teleportation Circle. And there's some extra rules on Teleportation Circle. So then it doesn't open a portal to a permanent location, to a permanent teleportation circle, or it opens a portal to the last location where you finished a long rest, because it has more stuff to do with like sleeping, because it's dreams and whatnot. Circle of the Shepherd is a bit interesting because it communes with spirits of nature, and it allows you to use a lot of the abilities the barbarian path of the totem warrior does. You could check out my episode on barbarians, wherever you get your podcasts. The Circle of the Shepherd gains the ability called Speech of the Woods, where you can talk to beasts and many fae. Not all fae, many fae. You learn to speak, read, and write Sylvan, which is cool. In addition, beasts can understand your speech, so you can talk to like animals and stuff. This ability with gifts, you can combine this ability with gifts to curry favor with them, as you would any non-player character. So basically, animals become non-player character. I know a lot of people like to cast speak with plants on trees and then be like, hey, where'd the bad guys go? And then the dungeon master, as a dungeon master, I love like giving the trees personalities. Like, you can have a really grumpy tree for whatever reason, or like a really mean tree, or a really happy tree, or make them like literally people. Like, have like if you're talking to the tree, like have it be like you just interrupted their proposal or something. That'd be really funny. I don't know. So they also get the ability Spirit Totem. This is where it becomes really tied into the Totem Warrior Barbarian, because you can use a bear spirit or a hawk spirit or a unicorn spirit even to gain protection, and you can lend protection to others nearby. And you gain advantage on ability checks, and there's a bunch of other stuff. Mighty Summoner is your 6th level ability, where beasts and fae that you conjure are more resilient than normal. So whenever you cast a summon beast spell or whatever, they get 2 extra hit points per hit die. They get the damage from its natural weapons is considered magical, which is pretty good because, like I said, most powerful monsters will have resistance or immunity to those things. Guardian Spirit, your spirit totem safeguards the beasts and fae that you call forth with your magic. Faithful Summons, where the nature spirits you commune with protect you when you are the most defenseless. So if you're at 0 HP or incapacitated, you can immediately gain the benefits of conjure animals as if it were cast using a 9th level spell slot. So it's basically another like last resort style ability where you can just be like, I'm not dead, haha, take that. So there's a lot of I don't know, even a soap opera kind of style thing where you're just like, I'm not dead. My twin brother was cloned and turned me into and then revived me. I don't know. Something like that. Then they have something that Xanathar's Guide provides that's really cool is they have the Learning Beast Shape section, where it basically gives a big list of different beast shapes that you can use. Which is really helpful because Xanathar's Guide is a huge trove of extra information. It's literally Xanathar's Guide to everything, because there's more subclasses, there's extra information for DMs, magic items, and it's really, really helpful. So I love it. It's been probably one of my favorite D&D books that I've gotten so far. Something I nearly forgot was the Druid Circle of Spores, which is a fancy mushroom-based nature druid subclass in Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica, and it's very related to the Golgari, I think. There it talks about how they believe that life and death are parts of a grand cycle, which ties into the druids thing all about preserving balance within the ecosystems and the elements. They gain the ability Halo of Spores and Symbiotic Entity at 2nd level, where they can do a bunch of different fun abilities related to mushrooms and fungi. Your Halo of Spores has a special thing where when a creature you can see moves into space within 10 feet of you, you can do a bunch of necrotic damage. There's also some stuff about gaining temporary hit points. Fungal Infestation is your 6th level ability, where your spores gain the ability to infest a corpse and animate it. So that's pretty cool, because in real life, there's a lot of spores and fungi will attach themselves to insect carcasses and then reanimate them. which is really cool. They have the ability Spreading Spores, which at 10th level you gain the ability to seed an area with deadly spores, and you can use it as a bonus action. You can use Symbiotic Entity. There's a bunch of other stuff relating to your Halo Spores, and then Fungal Body at 14th level. Your fungal spores in your body alter you to the point where you can't be blinded, deafened, frightened, or poisoned. And any critical hit against you counts as a normal hit instead, unless you're incapacitated. So, like I've said this before, 14th level and up or something around there is really overpowered. The last subclass that I need to talk about is the Druid Circle of Stars. I'm not a huge fan of this one, so I'm not going to go entirely in depth, but it basically allows you to draw on like the power of starlight and then like heavenly patterns and like constellations and stuff, and you have like star maps and stuff. It's a bit weird. It's a fun idea, but I'm not sure how well they executed it. So that's pretty much the end. So in conclusion, I like Druids. They're not my favorite class. I don't think I've played very many of them. I don't think I have played Druids. I should play a Druid sometime. Oh no, I did. I played a Druid Ranger, but Rangers are a bit odd, and I'll talk to you in another episode about Rangers. But Druids are really cool. They've got Wild Shape, which is really alluring and inviting to many people because you can transform into animals. So, thanks for listening. Once again, thanks for listening to this episode of the Dungeon Talk. We upload weekly on Fridays and uploads weekly on Saturdays if you want to check out our brand new YouTube channel. You can also find the latest news and updates on our Instagram at The Dungeon Talk. You can go ahead and ask questions on our email, thedungeontalk@gmail.com, and you can listen basically anywhere you can get your podcast. So once again, thanks for listening. Stay nerdy, stay safe. Dungeon Talk! Dungeon Talk! Dungeon Talk! Do 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 do.